Hello everyone, and welcome to part 3 of the history of advanced Yakuza combos. In this part, I will be discussing the games that comprise the early Dragon Engine era of the series, Yakuza 6, Yakuza Kiwami 2, and Judgment. By the time Yakuza Kiwami released in 2016, the 8th console generation had been out for multiple years. Despite this, the past few games had been made using the same engine RGG had been using since Ryuga Gotoku Kenzan in 2008. While Ishin, Zero, and Kiwami all saw releases on the PS4, they were still made using the PS3 engine, and even saw past-gen releases because of it. Likely sometime between Zero and Kiwami's releases, RGG decided to fully make the transition into the 8th generation for the next mainline entry, and saw it fit to make a completely new game engine for it to run on. This engine is known as the Dragon Engine, and it is what RGG Studio has been using to make the series even to this day. However, because this engine was completely built from the ground up, the combat of these games saw a total overhaul, and much of what was present in the older games was completely removed, replaced, or reworked. Alongside this, because the Dragon Engine was brand new, the team at RGG wasn't fully accustomed to it, and you can definitely feel this in the combat of the first few games that utilize it. There is a very clear line of demarcation between the early Dragon Engine era and the modern Dragon Engine era, in the form of Lost Judgment. Lost Judgment and all of the games that came after it clearly share a lot of DNA, but 6, Kiwami 2, and Judgment all feel more connected to themselves as opposed to the games Lost Judgment and onwards, and not always in a good way. Before going into the games in this video, I do need to make some updates and corrections to the previous videos. There are a good few, so I'll go over them quickly. About the Yakuza 3 shoulder pickup stuff again, Keihin states that the timing of when you pick up the enemy is not relevant to its consistency, and it is more so about the timing of when you attack them. Additionally, this 16-year-old game is apparently still getting tech discoveries to this day. Apparently, there is a 4th secret combo type found recently, known as a stagger combo. Many bosses in this game, as documented by Keihin in this screenshot, have special states that prevent them from blocking, and this can be used to your advantage, as shown in this clip, also by Keihin. This also works in Yakuza 4, but it only requires you to break the enemy's guard for it to work. And pause. Everything you just saw, I made 3 months ago. And a major reason as to why it took so long for this video to get made is because the Yakuza 5 revolution happened, I guess. Remember me bitching about knockdown combos being removed from this game in the last video? Well, people just figured out how to do them anyway? People's understanding of this game has so drastically changed in the past few months that it would be literally impossible for me to go over everything that has been discovered. So, I've called up my friend Star, who is one of the best Yakuza 5 players out there and understands this game much more than I do. She will be correcting stuff I straight up just got wrong in the last part. Link in the description when it's out. That out of the way, Keihin also explains a few extra things about Yakuza 0, namely how Majima's slugger style switch attack is actually a lot more useful than you might think, even if it's not fun. Like at all. And also about the potential ways to use Dragon style in a combo. After all of that, I think it's important to reiterate that what I say about these games is not gospel. There are things that I either don't know or can get wrong, especially for games I don't like as much. Even if I keep the explanative parts of these videos as unbiased as possible, if I don't like a game, I don't play it as much, and consequently, I don't know as much about it. I greatly appreciate all the people who correct my mistakes or give me additional information. One last bit of housekeeping before we get into the main video. Recently, the updated Switch 2 versions of Yakuza 0, Kiwami, and Kiwami 2 were ported to other platforms, and are now the only versions of these games that are available to purchase. Setting aside how I and many others feel about this decision, it is worth noting that these versions do not contain any major combat changes and will not be discussed. But beyond that, to look at where this Dragon Engine stuff all started, we need to go to none other than Yakuza 6. At first glance, Yakuza 6 seems like it takes the worst aspects from the previous games and repackages them into this shiny new engine. Back combos just don't work due to the immense turnaround and the fact that enemies can seem to block you from behind, Knockdowns and wall bounds are dead on arrival due to the fact that knockdowns now use simulated ragdoll physics rather than set animations. And the new wall stun combo type just looks like a wall splat with a new coat of paint. All of that on top of your low combo speed and overall sluggishness leaves this game with a poor first impression. For a long time, Yakuza 6 was considered to be a very shallow experience because of this, but over the years, many players have slowly discovered the surprising complexity present in this game. To begin with the combo types on offer, this game does have actual back combos, though they are a bit trickier to set up. Kiryu natively has a parry in this game like he did in Rush style, though it functions more like Tanimura's parry in Yakuza 4. It requires you to time your block to an enemy's attack, but it will not work on bladed weapons unlike Tanimura's parry, and the activation window is very short. It's recommended that you use the parry talisman item, as it makes you able to parry bladed weapons and also extends your parry window indefinitely. This matters because parries are required to set up back combos in this game. What I'm about to say is outlined in a video by Gunkshot, who goes into detail about this combo type in particular. Back combos require you to parry an enemy 2 to 3 times at the beginning of a fight just to set things up. By doing this and then parrying an enemy again, if you do all 4 light attacks and then immediately quickstep cancel into a forward quickstep attack, the enemy will enter a state where they will not turn around and cannot escape by blocking or dodging for the duration of the combo as long as you hit them only from their back. The setup for this is very specific, but it is the most versatile combo type by far. This combo type does not work on bosses with counterattacks such as Final Nagamo, Yuta, and Kiwami in his heat mode. It's worth noting that there exists these sort of turnaround loops that you can do, where you can hit an enemy after they stop turning from something like a quickstep attack, as long as you quickstep behind them. But this only works on a select few bosses, and it's almost completely usurped by true back combos. Stun combos are essentially a straight upgrade from back combos, as you can hit an enemy from anywhere and it bypasses counterattacks. The drawback is that stun combos are extremely specific to set up. The only way to set up a stun on a boss is to hit them with a heat action. However, they will only be stunned if they are below half health and you have not done a wall stun on them at all in the fight. Additionally, not all heat actions will cause a stun consistently. Only ones like the parry heat action or charge attack heat action will. Stun combos can also only be done once per fight, which is why you shouldn't rely on them outside of bosses with counters. To round out the combo types, we have wall stuns. These do have some similarities to Yakuza 5's wall splats, but they are still quite different. The main way to set up a wall stun is to land a finishing hold on an enemy by landing a finisher and pressing the grab button. After this, you throw the enemy next to a wall or corner and then stun them with either a quickstep attack or a standing kick. Once the enemy is stunned, the most common thing to do is 4S2T, as the animation is quite short, though the enemy is vulnerable to anything in this state. Some players have also started experimenting with potential restun setups, but I'd say that these require more testing before we can draw any concrete conclusions. This combo type is mostly just a neat extra like how back combos were in Yakuza 3 and 4, but they're nice to have and they're also really useful for setting up heat actions. Now that the basic explanations of combo types are out of the way, let's go over Kiryu's moves. With the changes made to the combat system with the Dragon Engine, and the fact that Yakuza 6 was going to be a single-style game, RGG decided to give Kiryu a completely new moveset that complements the new system much more and is also more well-rounded. The total array of moves is much larger, and their functions tend to overlap much less. One important thing to note before moving on is that, presumably due to a porting oversight, stun timers in Yakuza 6 are halved when playing at 60 FPS or above on PC. It is mandatory to limit the game to 30 FPS for your combos to function properly. All console versions run at 30 FPS, so this isn't an issue, but this also affects the PC port of Kiwami 2, just so you know when we get there. Yeah, this video's been in production for so long that part of that's just not true anymore. From what I can see, the PS5/Series X and S versions of Kiwami 2 Remastered run at 60 FPS, so don't play those. ST and S2T. ST is a really good move because it applies the gut stun effect, albeit the new Dragon Engine-ified version of it. Unlike in the old engine, the gut stun effect does not knock an enemy down, but it will still stun them in place for a few seconds, which is much more useful in the context of this game. It's also a decent poke, which makes it good for getting a finishing hold alongside its relative speed for a Yakuza 6 attack. S2T isn't anything too crazy though. It can be used for crowd control, but it has a good bit of end lag and can't be quickstep cancelled just like all other double finishers. Quickstep canceling is actually really good in this game, as it can be done in heat mode, and all light attacks and single finishers can be cancelled. Back to S2T, the only real combo use it has is on bosses with knockdown immunity. Knockdown immunity is still a thing in this game, but it is much more simple than in previous entries. The only bosses with knockdown immunity are Ed, Hirose, and Final Nagumo, and they have it regardless of whether or not they have heat. Knockdown immunity is actually better for combos in this game, as it doesn't reduce the amount of hit stun your attacks apply. Because of this, S2T can be comboed off of on bosses with knockdown immunity. 2ST and 2S2T. 2ST is the only single finisher that can knock down normal enemies. This property makes it unusable in combos on said enemies, but it's made up for with its unique finishing hold, which has a different and much better animation. This animation is better because it's more condensed, and is thus less likely to be interrupted by accidentally hitting a wall, which is an issue with the other finishing holds. A good way to set up a wall stun also involves parrying or otherwise hitting an enemy's back with 2ST as shown. You can convert off of this sometimes in back combos on knockdown immune bosses, but it's very inconsistent and I wouldn't recommend going for it. 2S2T is also usable on bosses with knockdown immunity as long as you whiff 2ST, which is usually done by landing ST, doing 3 quick steps backward, and then using the attack. 3ST and 3S2T. This move is pretty useful, but you do have to land it after a gut stun, as it will not combo off of 3S. It's not all that special otherwise. 3S2T is actually pretty bad, as it causes next to no hit stun on knockdown immune bosses, and is thus impossible to combo off of. 4ST and 4S2T. 4ST has the same issue as 3ST, where it won't combo off of 4S, which means you have to gut stun the boss and then quick step backwards to set it up. This attack also pushes bosses pretty far away, which isn't too much of an issue unless you want to use 4ST on a knockdown immune boss, as it can be difficult to follow up on an enemy's back during a back combo. This is of course not an issue during a stun combo, however. These two attacks are also the most common option out of a wall stun, like I said. One thing also given to Kiryu with his new moveset is a set of wholly new and unique reversals, though these don't have that much combo utility. SRT and SRT-T. SRT has a unique property of being a projectile launching attack. They turn this property up to 11 in this game, as this attack literally gives Kiryu telekinesis. This property isn't really used for combos, but it may have some potential. Other than that though, SRT and all of the other single reverse finishers have the same problem as 3S2T, where they cause very little hit stun and can't be comboed out of. SRT-T does cause substantial hit stun, however, at the cost of only being usable on bosses with knockdown immunity after a gut stun. 2SRT and 2SRT-T. 2SRT is a pretty good move to just throw out, as it'll immediately knock down most enemies, but this also means you can't really use it for combos. Even on knockdown immune bosses, it won't cause much hit stun at all. 2SRT-T is basically just the same as 2S2T though. 3SRT and 3SRT-T. Another single reverse finisher with no utility. I have been able to get 3SRT-T before, but the timing is unbelievably tight, so I wouldn't recommend going for it. 4SRT and 4SRT-T. 4SRT is useless and 4SRT-T is too slow to be used. A lot of Kiryu's additional moves are also really useful for combos. I've already mentioned his quickstep attacks, but they've seen quite the glow up from previous games. All of them are usable, though the forward one is the best one by far due to its speed. Your standing kick also causes a lot of hit stun unlike previous games, which gives it some combo utility. Another thing introduced in Yakuza 6 is the ability to use more than one running attack. You have separate attacks for a jog and for a full run. Your jogging attack can be used on all enemies, though you have to hit them straight on, or else you might hit the secondary hitbox which has no hit stun. This means that you generally don't want to use this after a gut stun, as the enemy will be bent over, making the main hitbox inconsistent. Your running attack is a full-on drop kick, which can only be used on knockdown immune bosses. You're pretty much forced to follow this up with your rush combo, as it has a lot of end lag. It's also really hard to use this in a back combo, as it messes with your positioning. There's also a new tech that allows you to throw out a dropkick without building up a full run. This is the insta-run tech, and it exists in every single real-time Dragon Engine game in some form. Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2 have the easiest version, as all you need to do is quickstep while holding forward. As soon as the quickstep ends, you'll be running and can immediately do a dropkick. The last of your normal attacks that you can use is your reverse heavy kick, at least on knockdown immune bosses. This game and all future Dragon Engine games all share a reversal tech, though it differs from the one in 3 and 4. It only applies to your reverse light attacks and reverse heavy kick. By tilting your control stick very slightly towards the camera and then doing an attack, the attack will be aimed forwards. This tech unfortunately does not work with keyboard and mouse. It's difficult to get the stick position down, but it's very fun to use. These are all of the moves that Kiryu can use normally, but a new addition in Yakuza 6 is Extreme Heat Mode, which is a powered up state that you can enter as long as you have heat. It changes your rush combo, gives you armor, makes you unkillable, and gives you access to a plethora of new heat actions. Extreme Heat unfortunately does not change much when it comes to combos. The only new thing it gives you is the Punch Flurry at the end of your rush combo. This is only usable on knockdown immune bosses, and you have to hold down the left trigger to suppress heat actions, but it is an additional option. Otherwise, you can still do most of the things you normally can in a combo, with the caveat that your new rush combo cannot be comboed out of in the way it normally can outside of the aforementioned Punch Flurry. Generally, you only want to enter Extreme Heat when you want to go for a heat action finisher. There's also a quirk that I found during my testing where bosses will just ignore Extreme Heat during a back combo. They straight up just armor through everything, so I guess Extreme Heat attacks are limited to stun and wall stun combos. Also watch out for the activation hitbox for Extreme Heat. It knocks down normal enemies and can't be comboed off of on enemies with knockdown immunity. The Punch Flurry and all of your double finishers have automatic heat actions attached to them when in Extreme Heat. These can be suppressed if you want, but these generally work as good heat action finishers. Other good heat actions to use are the ones attached to your running attacks and charged heavy in Extreme Heat. You also have a heat action specifically for wall stunning an enemy, and this game has a plethora of grab heat actions to use. When it comes to bosses, knockdown immune bosses are obviously the ones you want to go for, but none of them are perfect. Ed 1 has low health in a group, Ed 2 is after a long battle, has an even bigger group, and you're forced to fight with allies, and Ed 3 has a suboptimal arena, low health, and the fire can mess with your combos. Hirose is a good choice, but he is after a long battle, and Final Nagamo is immune to back combos due to his counter. Hirose is probably your best bet, but Final Nagamo is an option if you aren't wanting to do back combos. Overall, I think that Yakuza 6 is very misunderstood. It's very complex and dynamic once you know the inner workings of the game's systems, even if the total number of combat options is lower than the previous multi-character and multi-style games. I think this game also serves as a good template for the future Dragon Engine games to build off of. This game has a very unique feel in many ways, but at the end of the day, this is still a Yakuza game. But unfortunately, before we take steps forward, we have to take a few steps back. Yakuza Kiwami 2 is Yakuza 6 if it was boring. Kiwami 2 keeps the relatively small amount of combat options present in Yakuza 6, but gets rid of all of the actually interesting systems present in that game. I feel like Kiwami 2 is objectively better in some ways, like how your combo speed is faster, how your main combo type is not locked behind some esoteric setup, and how weapons are an actual thing in this game, but despite all of that, myself and many others think this game just doesn't feel as satisfying to play. I think the main reason for that is that even though combos have been simplified, they have been simplified way too much. The back combo setup does not work in this game, and wall stuns have been made extremely inconsistent, not helped by the fact that the finishing hold setup no longer works. Instead, stun combos are now your only real option, but they have been made much easier to access. Instead of the bullshit you had to deal with in Yakuza 6, now you can just land a charged light attack, and you're free to combo to your heart's content. This is all that you'll be doing for the entire game. One thing to note is that you can't always just throw out a charge attack and have it stun the enemy. Sometimes they'll just ignore it, and even if it does land, the actual stun animation may be extremely short or may not play at all. As long as the enemy noticeably staggers from the attack, they will be vulnerable to combos. These stun combos work identically to how they did in 6. It doesn't matter what side you hit the enemy on, and as long as you don't drop the combo, you can keep hitting them. It's possible to accidentally wall stun enemies in stun combos if they're too close to a wall, and this will automatically end a combo unless you're fighting Ryuji 1, so do be aware of that. Your attacks in this game function almost identically to how they did in Yakuza 6, apart from the universal speed increase and a few niche changes, so I won't go over your attacks in much detail. ST and S2T are unchanged, as are 2ST and 2S2T. One thing to note about 2S2T, however, is that it's much harder to use in this game, as most players do not unlock the third quickstep. The third quickstep is gated behind stat level ups. You don't want to level up your stats in a no damage context to avoid killing enemies too quickly, which is especially a problem in Kiwami 2. 3ST and 3S2T are unchanged. 4ST is now fast enough to combo out of 4S, but that said, it also seems to cause less hit stun, making 4S2T inconsistent. Your reverse finishers have also not received any significant changes. Your other moves have taken big hits. Your heavy kick has way less hit stun and no longer works. Your reverse heavy kick has gotten the same nerf but can still be used if you mash your rush combo, though your quickstep attacks seem to be intact. RGG immediately rolled back the running attack changes they made in 6, as you now only have one and it cannot be comboed out of. I suppose you do sort of have 2 running attacks though, as you do have a charged running heavy attack, alongside a normal charged heavy attack. The normal one can be comboed off of with some weird hand positioning on enemies with knockdown immunity, but the running one cannot. Another questionable change is the one made to Extreme Heat. Extreme Heat is basically the same as how it was in Yakuza 6, apart from some heat action remaps and a change to how your rush combo works. You now do your normal light attacks before transitioning into the Extreme Heat light attacks. The Punch Flurry has been completely removed from this game. These light attacks are noticeably slower than they were in 6, and therefore do not work in combos. This change is mostly a good thing, simply because having access to your normal light attacks in Extreme Heat is beneficial. The more questionable change I was talking about is that Extreme Heat is now locked behind having a completely full heat bar. This makes Extreme Heat much harder to use and makes this the only game in the series, other than maybe Kiwami 1, to incentivize not upgrading your heat bar. Many players choose to take advantage of the fact that equipable weapons are actually a thing in this game. Some weapon attacks like the knife circle attack or the sword light and heavy attacks are usable, though in order to combo off of these, the weapon does have to break. There are also some weapons that stun the enemy which can be used for heat actions in Extreme Heat. These heat actions existed in 6, but you never wanted to waste a stun for a heat action in that game. As for other heat actions, most of the ones in Yakuza 6 still apply here. Your jogging attack heat action has been remapped to your running charged heavy attack, but it is still usable. Other than that, the stun heat actions and the weapon heat actions, there's not much else that's new in this game compared to 6. And when it comes to bosses, this game is basically identical to Yakuza 2. Hayashi has a lot of health, so he's not a bad choice, though Ryuji is really your only boss with knockdown immunity. His fights aren't bad. Ryuji 1 literally cannot block you, so you can just combo him to death, but they do have variable health, and Final Ryuji can also break out at combos sometimes. And that's really all I have to say for Kiwami 2. To me, it's kind of a similar situation to Kiwami 1, where it removes some of the complexity of the combat and tries to make up for it by speeding everything up. Kiwami 2 isn't nearly as drastic in that regard though. It's really just a more boring version of Yakuza 6. That game is infinitely more interesting and, in my opinion, gives little reason to play Kiwami 2 over it. Kiwami 2's combat is in no way bad, just kind of one note, as you can probably tell by the short length of this section. Moving into the next one, however, we get to a very transitional entry in this franchise, which still retains mechanics from Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2, but sets the groundwork for what the more modern games would become. Judgment is a very interesting game in this franchise, not only because it features a brand new protagonist with brand new movesets, but also because of how many mechanics in the modern games originated here. This is the first Dragon Engine game to feature more than one style, and it also introduces juggling, which is present in all subsequent games. Unfortunately, juggling is little more than window dressing, as the juggle gravity is incredibly strong, so they won't last more than a few hits. While juggling is far more impactful in future games, it's almost completely usurped by stun combos in this game. They're akin to Kiwami 2 stun combos, but there's more than one way to activate them, and the simple fact that you have 2 styles instead of 1 makes them more interesting. Wall stuns have been completely removed in this game, which is good because you can't accidentally do one mid-combo. Another good change made going into this game is that stun timers are not affected by the frame rate in the PC port, likely due to the fact that this is a port of Judgment Remastered, which natively runs at 60 FPS. One final detail about this game that's worth mentioning is that this is one of the only, maybe the only game to not feature any form of knockdown immunity. As for the guy we're actually playing as this time, Yagami has two styles, Tiger and Crane. While the power balance of each of these styles in normal gameplay is heavily skewed towards Tiger, in the context of comboing, these styles actually flow into and out of each other quite well, and they feel like they cover each other's weaknesses in very satisfying ways. Yagami also has a few new mechanics in the form of wall jumping and leapfrogging. These are pretty self-explanatory, and they each have 3 attacks mapped to your light, heavy, and grab buttons. Leapfrog's heavy and grab attacks kinda just knock the enemy down, but the light attack is one of your stunning options. For your wall jumps, the grab attack is useful for crowd control, but you can't really use it in a combo. However, the light and heavy attacks are usable, assuming you go for them after an attack with a long hit stun animation, which we'll go over in a bit. The light attack is also a stunning option. The last and most versatile stunning option is the guard smash. Starting in this game, there are 2 different animations for breaking an enemy's guard. There's the normal guard break, which is self-explanatory, and the guard smash. Smashing an enemy's guard will result in a longer animation, and specifically in Judgment, will cause the enemy to be stunned. While Crane cannot break guards at all, most of Tiger's attacks will cause a guard break. This can be upgraded to a guard smash if you charge an attack such as a finisher or a quickstep attack. It's important to note that there is a mechanic in place that protects enemies from being stunned repeatedly. Trying to stun a boss multiple times in rapid succession will greatly shorten the amount of time of their initial stun, or will prevent it outright, so you do have to wait for a short time before they will receive a full-length stun again. One last thing before you start trying to combo in this game. RGG introduced extracts in this game, which basically gives you superpowers. There's a few that give you additional moves attached to the grab button, but far and away the most important extract is the Dance Fighter extract, which boosts your attack speed in both styles. A lot of combos just don't work without this extract, so it's important to have this on at all times. Additionally, managing your heat is extremely important in this game, because you receive an additional attack speed bonus when an EX boost, which is this game's name for extreme heat. EX boost is also mandatory for combos, so you want to make sure to use it sparingly. As for Yagami's moves, we'll start with Tiger style. ST, S2T, and S3T. Starting in this game, triple finishers are now much more common. This is actually the only game where all parts of your rush combo in all styles have triple finishers. As for ST, there's really only 2 instances where you want to use this move. One is the aforementioned guard break setup, and the other is as a potential move choice for a juggle. The reversal tech is in this game, but it's far more useful with your light attacks this time around. Tiger's standard light attacks have a gimmick where Yagami attacks twice per button press. This has the side effect of making the light attacks far slower than most others. Because of this, reverse light attacks are used in some situations as they are much faster. In juggles, it's often a better idea to do a reverse light attack instead of a normal one because of how short they are. ST is a decent choice for a juggle simply because of how quickly it can be accessed. It unfortunately can't be used in a stun combo, as Tiger's light attacks do not cause enough hit stun to combo into anything, unless you immediately style switch into Crane. You can use it after the initial stun, but ST itself also necessitates a style switch. S2T is a juggle starter, but the only real setup is to do it right after a guard break or guard smash with ST. I have been able to get rejuggles with this move, but rejuggle setups are extremely inconsistent in this game, and don't really become a thing until later entries. S3T unfortunately doesn't have much going on. It knocks enemies down and will immediately end a juggle or stun combo. 2ST, 2S2T, and 2S3T. All of these moves are pretty good. We're already at the point where it can be kinda hard to land all of these in a juggle, but you can land all of these moves out of an initial stun. 2ST will combo into 2S2T without issue, though you'll usually want to style switch from there to continue comboing, as 2S3T will start a juggle. You can quickstep or style switch out of 2S3T while an EX boost to continue the juggle. Or if you're really cool, you can go for an insta-run knee. The insta-run tech makes a return here, but it's performed a little differently due to this game requiring you to be locked on in order to quickstep. You must be facing the enemy for this to work, and you have to quickstep towards them. During the quickstep, let go of lock on, but continue holding down the quickstep button. Then, let go of the button right as the quickstep ends and you'll be running. I'll talk about your actual running attacks after this section. 3ST, 3S2T, and 3S3T. At this point, these attacks are so slow that you can't really use them outside of an initial stun. 3ST is usable, but it causes less hit stun than you might expect. 3S2T does literally nothing, and 3S3T is technically usable, but very inconsistent. 3S3T is a mashable finisher, and if you style switch while mashing and before the final hit comes out, you can follow up if you mash Crane Light Attack as fast as possible. Even then, this isn't consistent. 4ST, 4S2T, and 4S3T. Don't count on using these at all. Even if you could, 4ST causes very little hit stun, 4S2T is a juggle starter, and 4S3T knocks enemies down. Tiger Style also copies Kiryu's reverse finishers, though they're very unremarkable in this game. The only one you can realistically use in a combo is SRT, assuming you immediately style switch cancel it. 4SRT has also had its hit stun increased, and has a very niche use out of an initial stun. If you've played these games, this might look a bit weird to you, as all of the Dragon Engine games have a soft lock-on that directs your attacks towards the enemy if you're close to them, even if you're not holding down the lock-on button. However, style switching will temporarily disable this soft lock-on, allowing you to attack in any direction, including diagonals which wouldn't normally be possible. This allows you to whiff the light attack and then easily redirect the reverse finisher, as the soft lock-on will be reapplied after the light attack. All other reverse finishers are either too slow, juggle, or knock down, and thus can't be used. However, one new thing introduced in Judgment are the EX combos, which are new combo strings performed by pressing the heavy attack button repeatedly while in EX boost. Tiger's is a 4-hit combo, and the first 2 hits are usable in stun combos. The first hit, which I'll refer to as EXT, is one of a few moves to apply a long stun, which essentially acts like a gut stun from Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2. This long stun allows you to go for certain attacks you otherwise wouldn't be able to do. EX2T is also usable after EXT, but it doesn't stun for quite as long. I have been able to land EX3T after an initial stun, but the timing and positioning are very specific, so I wouldn't recommend going for it. EX4T can't be used in any way, and it just knocks down. Other moves worth mentioning are your quickstep attacks, heavy kick, running attacks, and flux fissure. Your quickstep attacks are usable in combos after a long enough stun, but they themselves don't cause much stun, so you must style switch cancel them. Your heavy kick can also be used, but you have to deactivate EX boost or else you'll just do the EX combo. Luckily, your heavy kick is another move that causes a long stun, so you have enough time to reactivate EX boost afterwards and continue a combo. Judgment brings back the multiple running attacks from Yakuza 6. You now have running and jogging attacks for each style, as well as a new light running attack and a slide which are shared between both styles. You sadly can't use your heavy running attacks in EX boost as they are overridden by the EX combo. Even then, the jogging attacks can't be comboed off of and the running attacks just knock down. Your light running attack causes a long stun and can be done either out of an initial stun or out of EXT. This attack also has what I consider to be the hardest tech in the game, which I'll call running attack loops. If, while in EX boost and in Tiger style, you land your light running attack in a stun combo, it is possible to quickstep cancel the running attack, insta-run after the quickstep, and do another running attack. You can theoretically loop this as many times as you want as long as you have the enemy in a corner, don't run out of heat, and don't miss, but the timing for this is insanely strict. Too early and the attack won't come out, too late and you'll leapfrog over the enemy because you're running right next to them. The timing for this can't be more than a few frames, and I've only been able to hit a max of 3 of these in a row after hours of testing. If you can hit 4 or more running attacks in a row with video proof, please let me know. As for the slide, it doesn't cause much hit stun, but can be used after an initial stun or after a knee if you style switch. Finally, there's flux fissure. It's a type of hit grab, meaning that it functions like a grab but won't go through guards. This move isn't a combo move outside of some juggle setups, but it's worth mentioning as it's the most important move in this game for heat management. Heat gain is kinda slow in this game, but this move in particular gives you a fuck ton! The most reliable way to land it is after stunning the enemy. This creates a dynamic where you have to consider when to use your stun opportunities to get more heat, or to go for a combo, and I think it greatly benefits Judgment's gameplay loop. We still have another style to cover though, and while Crane feels like somewhat of an afterthought in terms of normal gameplay, there's still quite a bit to talk about. ST, S2T, and S3T. Sadly, this set of finishers is hardly usable. ST and S3T knock enemies down, and S2T is a juggle starter. 2ST, 2S2T, and 2S3T. There's a specific setup you can do after a long stun where you can aim your light attacks away from the enemy and then aim 2ST towards them. You can do 2S2T after this, but you have to style switch cancel after the first hit, as the second one will knock the enemy down. This means you can't really use 2S3T either. It's worth noting that both 2ST and the first hit of 2S2T will cause a spin. This animation doesn't leave the enemy vulnerable for quite as long as the long stun, but it does allow you to go for some slower options like Tiger EXT or a wall attack. 3ST, 3S2T, and 3S3T. These attacks aren't too great. The only consistently useful one is 3S2T, which can be used after an initial stun and will cause a spin. 3ST and 3S3T both knock down. There may be some use for 3S3T as a potential juggle setup, but trying to convert off of this rolling animation is extremely unreliable in this game. 4ST, 4S2T, and 4S3T. 4ST can be converted off of, but its low hit stun means that the only reliable way to do so is to style switch as soon as possible, do a Tiger light attack, and then style switch back to Crane. More often than not, you'll either style switch after 4S or do 4S2T, as it's your best juggle starting option out of a stun combo. 4S3T isn't really worth using. You may have been able to tell, but unlike Tiger, Crane's light attacks can be used on an enemy without dropping the combo. Crane 4S causes a spin, which makes it combo into other moves very well, and Crane's light attacks also have the unique ability to loop indefinitely. Pressing light attack again after using 4S will seamlessly restart your combo back at 1S, which technically means that you can infinite a boss this way. Crane has mostly the same ability set as Tiger, but has no reversals, charge attacks, or Flux Fissure, and cannot quickstep cancel as efficiently as Tiger. It does have a unique EX combo however, and has a few good upsides. The first hit is incredibly fast, so it can convert off of just about anything. It also has the secondary effect of allowing you to change the direction you're facing in a juggle, which makes something like this possible. The first 3 hits can all combo together in a stun combo, and the third hit causes a spin. You can style switch after that, but Crane EX3T has low enough end lag to where you can just keep attacking in Crane style after using it. Like Tiger, Crane EX4T just knocks down though, so it's only really useful as a finisher. Speaking of combo finishers, you have quite a few heat actions to choose from in this game. Judgment does a cool thing where certain heat actions have 2 different variations depending on which style you're in. This applies to your wall heat actions and mini grab heat actions, which adds a good bit of variety. You also have options like the leapfrog heat action, which changes depending on what side of the enemy you jump over. And you can also do the 2 rush combo heat actions either by doing a long stunning attack and then aiming Crane 2ST towards the enemy, or by comboing into Crane 4S2T like you normally would. If you're drunk, you can do the drunk heat action, and if you're really good at managing your heat, you can even do the super heat action that requires a mostly full heat bar. When it comes to bosses in this game, because there's no knockdown immunity, any 1v1 boss like Hamada or Kuroiwa can work. Either Kuroiwa fight is good because they have high health and can be easily accessed from a save. Other good choices are any of the Keihin gang members, though I wouldn't really recommend Koga. Despite its flaws, Judgment feels like the closest thing to a fully realized combat system in the pre-Lost Judgment era of the Dragon Engine. Reintroducing multiple styles is very important for the series, not only because it expands the amount of options you have, but because having a great universal cancel in the form of style switching is extremely important. The lack of a style switch cancel is very much felt in 6 and Kiwami 2. Judgment is not perfect by any means, but it was a step in the right direction, and it goes to show how RGG was beginning to get more comfortable with the Dragon Engine. And that is the end of part 3 of this video series. We're getting close to the end now, but there's still so much more to discuss, and we'll talk about the elephant in the room next time. There's a big shift that happens between these games and the next, but you'll have to wait until the next video to see just what happens. For now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.